Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Nisha Singla, and in today's session we are going to talk about another important interview question for JavaScript, and that is function currying. So before starting with today's session, please make sure that you are aware about the concepts of closures in JavaScript, because whenever interviewer will ask you about function currying, then automatically the discussion of closures will also come into the picture. And to understand the concept of function currying also, you have to understand the concept of closures. I have already created a video on closures. You can find the link in the description, and if you are comfortable with closure, then you can directly start with this video. Now without any further ado, let's get started. In JavaScript we used to create function. So if I say like I want to create a sum function, then you will probably say okay, we can do something like this, right? And to call this function, you will say okay, I can call this function with this syntax. So this is a very simple format that we used to write in JavaScript. But if I say that can I do something like this, then you will think once, like this syntax I am not aware of, because this syntax is a syntax of function currying. So currying is a process in functional programming in which we can transform a function with multiple arguments into a sequence of nesting function. So it returns a new function that accepts the next argument in line. Let me make it simple for you. In other words, we can say like when a function, instead of taking all the arguments at one time, takes one argument and return a new function that takes the another argument and returns a new function, and so on until all arguments have been passed. So this is the concept of function currying. So in currying, every function takes only one argument and returns a function, while the last function in the series will return the desired output. I know that it might be a little bit confusing, but as of now you just need to understand, like now we are not going to pass all the argument at one go. We are going to pass a single argument at a time, and then I'm going to return a new function that will take the another argument. So this name is basically given by an American mathematician named Haskell Curry, who developed this technique, and that's why it is called currying. So now let me show you how you can call your function using this format, or how you can pass a single argument at a time instead of passing all the argument at one go. So let me convert this function into a currying function. So as I told you, function currying means you are going to pass one argument at a time. So if I say I want to create a sum function, and I want to make it a currying function, so I will pass one argument, and now this function will return another function which will take another argument, and at the end your innermost function is going to return the final output. So what is the final output we are expecting? The sum, right? So we can say x plus y. So when you write your function in this format, this is called function currying. So now I can call my function this way. I can wrap it to console.log, and I can execute this one. So can you see that? I'm getting 33. So if you try to call it like this, it will not work, okay? Because some function cannot have two arguments, it is only taking one. And function currying can also be called one more way. You can do something like this. As my sum function will return another function, so what I can do, I can execute my sum function, pass first argument, and then I will hold this return, that is again a function, into another variable. So this time this second value will be my this innermost function. Alright, now you can call it anytime whenever you want. So maybe I want to call it like this. So it will return me a sum of 30. And we have talked about this format in the last session, where I have talked about the closures as well, because my innermost function is using this x variable, right? So even after my sum function has completed its execution, my innermost function remember its lexical scope. So this is the concept of closure. So you just need to remember that the concept of currying, function currying, is possible because of closure. So you need to be comfortable with the concept of closure to understand the function currying. You can also make it more complicated. You may have further argument maybe for the sum. So if I say I want to sum 3 numbers, so what you can do, you can further make one more nested function that will take the value of z, and from here I can return the final output that would be the sum of x, y and z. So here what I can do, I can call something like this. So I hope now this one is clear, like how it is executing. Now you can even make it little shorter. We all know ex6 now, right? So we know how to use arrow function. So you can even simplify this function into this format. Let me show you. So can you try it at your own, like how you can convert this function into a arrow function, and at the end you can compare that code with my code so that you can check how much comfortable you are with arrow function. But let me show you how you can convert this function into a fat arrow function of ex6 that will make this code even more shorter. So what you can do, we can have one sum function, right? So this sum function will take one argument x. In return of that, this x function further return a function with the argument of y, and then this function also return another function that takes the input of z, and at the end that will return a final output of x, y and z. So now you can comment this one, and when you run this one with, let's try with some simple value like 1, 2 and 3, you will get the same output, 6. And if you do it with this, still you will get the same output. So can you see the difference? It becomes so much cleaner and shorter. So that is the beauty of ex6 new features. So you should know how to use arrow functions. So I hope now you understood it. But let me show you one more example, and you need to tell me like whether this is a function currying or not. Okay. So maybe I am creating one multiply function this time, okay, and it will take one argument like this. Now if I return another function from this function which will take another argument like this, and if I return the logic here, that would be the multiply of all these numbers, okay. And now if I invoke this function, that will take one argument at a time, and then it might take another arguments for b and c. Let's run this one. Okay, it's multiply, right? So function name is not correct. So now let's try again, and you will get 12, right? So now if I ask you like, is this also a function currying? So what would be your answer? So if you are saying no, this is not a function currying, then you are right. This is not a concept of function currying. As I told you, currying means when your function takes single argument or one argument at a time, then that is the function currying. But here you can see this multiply is taking one argument, but for the another function call, it's taking more than one argument. So this is not function currying. This is the concept of partial application. So when we talk about function currying, the concept of partial application also come in the picture. So currying functions takes one argument at a time, whereas your partial applied function can take many arguments at a time. But still it is partial because first I am calling this multiply function with 2, and then I am calling another, I am passing another argument at some another time. So it is partial call. So this version is not curry, we just did a partial application of this multiply function. So currying and partial applications are related because of closure, because here also you can see we are using closure because my innermost function is remembering the scope of A. So this is also a closure, but concepts are different. It is also using closure, but this is partial application. And this one is my currying function because it takes single argument in every function call. So this difference is also important to know, like what is the difference between function currying and partial application. So if I ask you to convert this function to function currying, how we can do that? It's simple, right? Instead of passing two arguments, you just need to pass one argument, and from this one I'll create another function will takes the another value. and now we will execute it like this. So now this one is called function currying because my every function is taking single argument. So function currying is not possible without argument. If you have somewhere your function which doesn't take any argument, then that is not function currying. Okay, so you just need to understand these differences. So now the question might come like why we should use function currying. So there are several reasons where currying can be used. Okay, I might discuss few. You may come up with some another important use that you can also share with me in the comment section. But we will talk about few advantages or few use cases where currying can be used. But before going to that examples, I hope the syntax and the difference is clear between function currying, closures and this partial application, right? So now let me show you one use case where you can use function currying. I will get it from all this one from here as of now. So now let's take one more example. Suppose I have one users variable, right? And I'm creating few keys here like maybe first name and last name and maybe city and so on. It could have so many keys. Let's keep it simple for these three keys as of now. Now if I want to use this function without any function currying and I want to create one function that will give me this user detail, okay, and I want to get the first name for now. So what I'll do, I will say data.firstname, right, something like that, and I will call this function from somewhere. It's not related to function currying, it's a very simple method that I'm creating. So I'm saying get user detail and I will pass my users object. So it will give me the name, right? It should display Nisha. That is fine. But now do you think that this function is reusable? No, because we have hard coded our key name here. In future maybe my requirement change and I want to get the last name. So this function cannot be used. So to make it this function more dynamic, what we can do, one more argument to this function which will take the key name so that we don't need to hard code it here, right? So what we can do now to make this function more dynamic, you can decide what key you want from here. So maybe I want to access the last name. So now this function takes two arguments, so I need to define one more parameter and here I may give this as a key. So what you can do now, you can get it like this. It will return me the last name, right? And this function will work for all keys. You just need to change the key name. So this looks fine. And if I try with first name, that will also work, and this will work for all the keys, right? Can you see one more problem here? Every time I need to pass this users. So do we have a way through which we can fix this call? We don't need to write it every time. So there we can use this function currying. Okay. So wherever you feel that your first argument should be fixed and based on that your other function should execute. So in that case also you can use this function currying. So let me convert this function to function currying now. I hope you got an idea now. You will create this get user detail function which will take just the object name and then your inner function will return the logic, so that you just need to call this one only one time and then you just need to execute your inner function with the keys. What you can do now, you can take this one as a single argument because that is a rule for currying. And now what will do, it will return me another function which will take the key name, and now from here I can just return the key. So now I will create one variable that will hold the call of this get user detail that will take the object name as the argument. So now when this line will execute, it will execute only this one and returns this one here. So this is again a function, right? So this user detail will also become a function. So what we can do now, I don't need to call this one again and again. I just can call this user detail that will expect me a key. So whatever key you want to pass, you can call it like this. So now if you need any another key, you don't need to pass users every time. Fine. So here you can see we have reduced our line of code also and my code looks more simpler, right? So here This is also an example of function currying. There could be a lot of other use cases where you can use this scenario, okay? But this is again an example of function currying because my function takes a single argument and my inner function also takes a single argument, and then the innermost will return me the final output. So this is called function currying. So now we can say function currying is useful wherever you want to avoid the same variable passing again and again, right? And it divides your function into multiple smaller functions that can handle one responsibility. So when you divide your function into single responsibility, right, this makes your function pure and less prone to error and side effects. So somehow it allows you to create pure functions as well. Now what is pure function? For that also I have added a video. I have provided the link also in the description. You can check it out. And even when you go in advance in functional programming, there is a concept of higher order functions. There also we use this function currying. There could be other scenario, even for DOM manipulation also we can use function currying. Okay, let me show you one more example that in DOM manipulation how you can use this function currying. So I'll move to different editor as of now because I need to write some HTML also. Okay. This is the last example that will definitely make you more clear about the function currying. So what I am doing as of now, I am just creating a very simple DOM. Now what I want to create a utility, or I want to create some function in JavaScript that allows me to change its content. Fine. So that could be done in so many ways, but let's do that with the help of currying. So first of all, for that what you need to do, you need to get the reference of this DOM so that you can manipulate its content. So let me create that. So maybe I will create one function that will say update node. That will take one function. So function currying is very clear. You have to take one argument at a time. So I will pass the ID which you want to update to this function. So my ID is header as of now. So this function will take simple one thing, and that is the reference of your DOM. And now I will create one more function that will actually manipulate my DOM. Okay, so in this function I want to update my content, so that content will also be input by the user, right? What you want to display on this DOM now, so that content will be the another input. So here you can write your logic to update the DOM. So you can write in different way. I will just keep it simple using document dot, maybe you can say DOM get element by ID. I will use this method query selector method that will takes the ID, which ID you want to change. So I want to update this ID, whatever ID will pass by user. I'm using this ex6 backtick syntax, and then this method gives you text content method, and in the text content, whatever content user has passed, I want to update that one. Fine. So this is a very simple example of function currying again to update the DOM. So how you can execute, I think you know that. So I will create maybe update header, and I will execute this update node. That will take one argument, and that is the ID which you want to modify. So the ID name is header, right? I want to update this h1 whose ID is header. So now by doing that I have executed this one. So this will return me another function which will hold in this function. So now we can call this function update header, which will take another argument, and that is the content. Content means now what is the new content you want to display. So maybe I want to say hello Nisha. Let's try that, save. So it is not reflecting, and the reason for that is I am not able to get the reference correctly, as it is the ID, right? Query selector, you have to mention that it is the ID or class. So for ID we have to use this symbol, right? And now let's try this one. So you can see that now my DOM is updated from hello user to hello Nisha. So this is again a very small function that I have created for function currying, because here my update node function takes single argument, which again returns another function which takes the another argument, and that's how we are updating our DOM. So anytime you need to update the DOM, you can just do that. And now can you convert this function to ex6 functions to make it little more cleaner and smaller, right? Let's try to do that. So for that, what you need to do, first you need to pass ID to this function. I will not delete this one so that we can compare. So you just need to say update node. This will take an argument of ID, which again return a function that takes the another argument of this content which in returns this line, right? So we can do this like this, and let me comment this one. So this way we have used this ex6 syntax, and the output will remain same. So this is how you can use this ex6 functions. So this is how you can also use function currying in DOM manipulation. And again, I'm repeating, there could be so many other scenarios where this function currying can be useful. But I hope these demos are making sense, and now you got an idea like what is function currying and where it can be useful. And there are lots of libraries which gives you some utility that allows you to convert your function into curry function. So if you have used Lodash library, that library is already giving you one function curry that will help you to convert your standard function to a curried version. So if you want to try, you can use those methods as well, but it's always good to learn from scratch like how it works. So I hope this one is clear, and in the interview you would be answer all the questions related to function currying, what is closure, what is partial application, and where we can use this function currying. So this is all for today. I hope it is clear. If this video is helpful to you, please share with your network and let me know in the comment section how you found it, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care and bye bye. So it is not reflecting, and the reason for that is I am not able to get the reference correctly, as it is the ID, right? Query selector, you have to mention that it is the ID or class. So for ID we have to use this symbol, right? And now let's try this one. So you can see that now my DOM is updated from hello user to hello Nisha. So this is again a very small function that I have created for function currying, because here my update node function takes single argument, which in again returns another function which takes the another argument, and that's how we are updating our DOM. So anytime you need to update the DOM, you can just do that. And now can you convert this function to ex6 functions to make it little more cleaner and smaller, right? Let's try to do that. So for that, what you need to do, first you need to pass ID to this function. I will not delete this one so that we can compare. So you just need to say update node. This will take an argument of ID, which again return a function that takes the another argument of this content, which in returns this line, right? So we can do this like this, and let me comment this one. So this way we have used this ex6 syntax, and the output will remain same. So this is how you can use this ex6 functions. So this is how you can convert your currying function to, so this is how you can also convert your function to, So this is how you can also use function currying in DOM manipulation. And again, I'm repeating, there could be so many other scenarios where this function currying can be useful. But I hope these demos are making sense, and now you got an idea like what is function currying and where it can be useful. And there are lots of libraries these days which gives you some utility that allows you to convert your function into curry function. Like if you use Lodash, or so if you have used Lodash library, that library is already giving you one function curry that will help you to convert your standard function to a curried version. So if you want to try, you can use those methods as well, but it's always good to learn from scratch, like how it works. So I hope this one is clear, and in the interview you would be answer all the question related to function currying, what is closure, what is partial application, and where we can use this function currying. So this is all for today. I hope it is clear. If this video is helpful to you, please share with your network and let me know in the comment section how you found it. And I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care and bye bye. Thank you.